Welcome back to Junction 119. This is Kellen.
This is Kason.
And this is Matt.
Yes, he's back. We're bringing in another one of our usual analysts. I think this is the third time you've been on now, Matt.
Yeah, I was trying to keep score here. I don't know. I maybe someone else has been on 3 times, but I know that I've been on 3 times.
Well, James for sure has, because I've called him our resident baseball expert. Whenever we're talking college football, we bring in Matt Beneke because of his collective research, and you're really, really great on personnel. All around, one of the best friends of the show we have. Thank you for joining us, Matt. We appreciate it, man.
Yeah, of course. Love you guys.
Absolutely. Love you guys too. I don't love the amount of scarlet and gray in here, but at the same time, I do get it because it's like the residents of. Kaysen told me about a bit of some kind, but he's mentioned on the show before that he's more repping his where he lives now. Me, like at some point in my life, I really want to like have a plethora or a wall of every school I've ever had an affiliation for and or worked for. So I thought about that, like all of the pennants or all of the logos behind me of some kind. Or
That'd
on a
be
wall.
awesome.
So, yeah, like I've literally thought about that in the future of like when I'm living in a more permanent place, a backdrop of that for the show would be really cool. But this is gonna be our, in quotes, massive college football preview. We're gonna talk about the conference predictions, conference champion predictions rather. We're gonna talk about the playoff. These guys went and made a full 12 team playoffs. You're gonna get to kind of hear these guys as in Kason and Matt did. I have a top four, but I have some. I'm gonna talk about how we arrived there. How would you guys like to do this? Do you want to start with conference champs first and just kind of go down the line and then we jump into the playoff?
Yeah. I'd say we just go around conferences first. I did mine alphabetically. Sort of. I did like Power Five and then Group of Five alphabetically, but I don't know.
Okay.
Can I just run down realignment real fast? Because this is like the year
Oh,
where there's
good point,
everybody's
good point.
everywhere.
I was
Yep.
going to mention before we dove in because this is going to be the most unrecognizable college football season of our lives so far. That's everybody in this country. Of our entire lives, it's going to be the most unrecognizable, from alignment to the fact that the champion's going to have to play up to 17 games. So, yeah, go ahead, Matt. You can talk about realignment.
Yeah, so just to kind of review here, the ACC added Stanford, Cal, and SMU. The Big Ten added USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington. The SEC added Texas and Oklahoma. And the Big 12 lost Texas and Oklahoma, but they added Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and Arizona State.
There it is. And
And the Pac-2.
the Pac-12 is now the two, but still exists. It is Oregon State and Washington State. So nonetheless, Kason, why don't we start with yours? Because, we can kind of go around in some sort of order that we'll figure out as we start here.
Yeah. So I started like alphabetically. So I have the ACC first, and then we'll start in the power conferences and get to the Group of Five. But
Love it.
so ACC first. Obviously, like Matt just mentioned, they added Stanford, Cal, and SMU. In my opinion, the only one who has any amount of potential to make any relative noise is SMU, just to be interesting, because they won the American last year and they have all of that oil money in Texas, and so they could be good, but kind of coming off the heels last year, and they have a good amount of reason to be angry. I have Florida State winning the ACC.
Yeah, go ahead.
With
Sorry,
DJ Uiagalelei transferring in from Oregon State
Yes.
to be their new quarterback.
Yeah, I also have Florida State, and like you mentioned, DJU. He is like the perfect good college quarterback that you don't really think is going to do a whole lot as a pro, but like he's in his either fourth or fifth year in college, and you know that you're going to get like a pretty steady like level of play from him. So,
I would have guessed 6, to be honest.
yeah, honestly, yeah.
It's funny because like I've been playing through like different ACC dynasties and such on College Football 25, and the team that seemingly is like the dark horse to be really good this year in the ACC for the first time in a while is Virginia Tech. I only bring them up because I have no idea who Florida State is going to beat in the ACC championship game, because I definitely have them winning that as well. But I legit don't know who the second best team in this conference is this year. Could it be Miami finally? Like, with the additions they've made? I don't know.
It might be Syracuse.
See, I'm not necessarily convinced, because as good as LaQuint Allen and Kyle McCord like could be in the tandem back there, there's just a staying power. They have a brand new coach. I'm just not convinced that they're going to take that kind of a step up. I also think that their new coach has a lot of question marks. This is me just talking as a fan now and alumnus. It could be. I mean, if they come out to a really hot start, I wouldn't be surprised. But again, it's like the wheel of destiny. Like that whole thing. If you can spin it, and it's whatever. All I'm saying is put Florida State at number 1 and spin it to whoever the second best team is.
Yeah, I think they.
Yeah, I mean, going to Miami, I believe their new quarterback is Cam Ward from
Yes, it is
Washington
Cam
State.
Ward.
So
Yep.
Could be interesting to see that. Well,
I expect our offense to cook. I mean, if I'm being completely honest.
Mhm.
I think that this could be a really high profile Miami team. But again, in the ACC, it seems to be longevity, like who actually can go the distance. We'll see. But yeah, Florida State, we all agree on that.
Mhm.
Kaysen.
Moving on to the Big Ten.
Boom.
I don't think that's really much of a surprise here. With the massive, spending and NIL and huge amount of transfers coming in key positions.
It's 6 transfers.
Well, yeah. Well, value.
I push back on the super team thing, but continue.
I'm just saying, huge amount of important transfers at important positions. There you go. The Will Howard, Quidshun, is that his Quidshun?
Quinshad Judkins, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. But I have Ohio State definitely.
Okay.
The Big Ten. I think Michigan kind of falls off a cliff. Just from an actual logistical perspective, who knows what this investigation is going to do? Yeah. I think it's going to follow them the whole season. Who knows if Sherrone Moore is going to be able to stay as the coach? We'll see.
What you're saying is correct, but it's infinitely funnier with what you're wearing.
It is. It's true.
I also have the Buckeyes. I have them beating Oregon, which they'll also do on October 12th in Eugene. I just think that you look at the way that teams win in college now, if it's not the 3-and-dones and 3-and-dones and 3-and-dones stacked on top of each other, it's guys coming back for their senior year and being motivated and having something that they want to play for, that they want to win for. And I don't know that there's a team in the country that has that more than Ohio State this year. Beyond adding guys like Caleb Downs in the portal, who could be the best defensive back in the entire country. Just in general, it seems like they came back with a mission, and hopefully, please, this will be the year.
Okay, so you guys both have Ohio State winning the Big Ten. It is going to be so wild when Oregon wins the Big Ten in their first year in it over them, because I think Dylan Gabriel and Evan Stewart are going to cook everybody this year. And literally the only thing, like if I was sitting here and the Pac-12 still existed, I would be saying Oregon's going to win the Pac-12 by a mile. And I really think that like the Ducks are going to be that good this year. The thing that's really going to slow them down is going to be that travel. I'm telling you. And this is not the first time that I'm going to bring up travel, or not the last rather time I'm going to bring up travel during the show today. But I don't know. I just think that they edge out the Buckeyes this year because there's just an it factor under Ryan Day that the Buckeyes just have not had. And you're asking a team to not only beat Michigan, but then win that next game before getting into the playoff. I just think that there's a lot of question marks there, and more than Buckeye fans like y'all think. Personally, I just don't see the evidence that Ryan Day can get it done.
That's fair.
If anyone wants to push back on that, I genuinely didn't think both of you were just going to slam dunk the Buckeyes like that. And not in a year where the Big Ten has new teams in it, the travel that the teams in the Midwest are going to have to do as well. I just think that this is going to be more of a snake pit like season with some unpredictable things as you think. But the one thing that is consistently in all the projections is that Oregon is set to be there at the end of the year.
I definitely think they'll be good, but we'll see. I mean, they couldn't get it done against Washington last year. So sure. We'll see how they are able to come back a little bit, hungrier this year.
That hunger also applies to the Ducks as well that Matt was talking about. So Go ahead, Kaysen. We can talk about this more when we talk about the playoffs. So go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. So moving on to the Big 12. I think on the whole, the conference, losing Oklahoma and Texas, the conference is definitely weaker from like a top level perspective, but I think the middle of the conference is really deep. Like I think, from first place to, you know, eighth is probably like a 1 to 2 win margin because you've got a ton of really competitive options. Between Kansas State, Oklahoma State, I think could be good. But I've got a newcomer to the conference. I've got Utah. I think Cam Rising, um, hopefully he can stay healthy. I mean, I've been super intrigued to see his career because he was super good a couple years ago, and I was really excited to see him last year. And it kind of sucks how that went. And so I'm really hoping that he's able to come back, to the level that he was 2 years ago, and
We
even
also
before
talked
that.
about him on the show last year with Matt. I remember.
Yeah, well, because we
I
thought
think
he
he
was
had just
gonna
gotten
be.
injured. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
We
yeah.
were like, oh well, he's injured, so their season's
So
over.
Utah's not gonna. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So I really hope that he can stay healthy because Utah's a fun team to watch with a really good offense and stuff. And in the Big 12, I think they could be really entertaining. So
Yeah, so I have Utah in the Big 12 championship game, but I actually have Kansas State beating them. And the reason why is because I want to give a shout out to another podcast, Kings of the North. They talk about Northern college football in the way that ESPN likes to talk about the SEC. But anyway, they were basically making a comparison for Kansas State's quarterback situation, which obviously Will Howard transferred to Ohio State this offseason. And realistically, he wouldn't have been the starter at Kansas State this year. And the reason for that isn't because he's some like bad quarterback or anything, but it's because Avery Johnson, who's going to be a sophomore this year, is like the highest rated recruit in program history. And the comparison that they made was that it's as though Georgia, now this is obviously a smaller scale because Kansas State isn't anywhere near Georgia, but it's as though Georgia had told Jake Fromm to hit the portal and kept Justin Fields instead. That's the
Mhm.
type of move that they made there. So they
like they
they
should have, you mean?
yeah,
Like they should
yeah.
have.
So they
Okay.
upgraded big time at the quarterback position from like a good college player to like someone who could be really, really good. Um, and so you combine that with the rest of the roster and whatnot, and their coaching staff is really good. And I just think that Kansas State ultimately will win the Big 12 this year.
Is this dude from Kansas or like how
Yes.
did? Okay, I was gonna say I
Yeah,
was like,
he
why is he there?
Yeah.
basically they were like he's going to hit the portal if we don't play him this year, so we have to tell Will Howard, who has won conference titles, like, sorry dude, we got to do it with the hometown guy who's the highest rated and everything else. So
And that's a crazy dynamic in college football now, right? When it comes to like roster building, like one of the things you can do in the video game in college football 25 is encourage transfers. And it's just so interesting to like know that it's like, well, we've got this ticking timeline on this guy. If we want to use him, we definitely got to guarantee he plays this year, but we can't justify keeping Will here, you know. So yeah, go ahead, go to your. And we love to, but we can't. You know, it's just the stuff that's unheard of. Again, unrecognizable. I'm with you guys. I think Kansas. I think I'm actually going to go Kansas State, but there's one team I do want to talk about. Kansas, I think, is going to give both of those teams you talked about a run for their money this year. They're really kind of investing in football. They're really, really trying to make a statement. And I think I think they just renovated their stadium, right? And made it bigger
So.
or something like
I
that.
think it's like in progress, but yeah, that's like the
Yeah.
goal.
Yeah. And the recent update to the game is what made me research a little bit of that. Jalen Daniels and Devin Neal are returning. I really think that if they're not in the game, if they get to the game, I don't think they'll win. They'll win. They'll lose to either Kansas State or Utah for the reasons you guys said. But for my money, I'll go with Kansas State as well, just because that's just a group that knows how to get that done. And even with the additions of the Big 12, I think they look around with even the additions are some pretty familiar regional opponents. And yeah, I'll go Kansas State, but don't be surprised if Kansas is like within a game of being able to potentially make that game this year at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, certainly possible.
Yeah. Who's next, Kason?
Moving on, that would be the Southeastern Conference.
Oh yeah.
The SEC, like we mentioned, it's
where it means more. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
with the additions of Texas and Oklahoma. Obviously everybody's curious to see how they adjust because the SEC is definitely not the Big 12. So with that said, Shocker, I have Georgia winning the SEC again. They made it terrible, terrible performance in Atlanta against Alabama, but they'll get the job done this year.
Okay, I have Texas winning the SEC. They I just feel different about this Texas team. They bring back their quarterback Quinn Ewers. Um, they have a lot of skill guys and things like that. Sark is a really good coach. He's been in the SEC before. I also think that when you compare Georgia, who I do believe Georgia is going to be a playoff team, they're going to be the second best team in the SEC. I just think that a lot of times the last couple of years they've been bailed out by Brock Bowers offensively when really they haven't done a whole lot on offense. I don't buy the Carson Beck as #1 overall pick hype. I just don't get that at all. But also I understand that it is like a bad quarterback draft, so I wouldn't be that surprised. But anyway, yeah, I like Texas. It's in Atlanta still, yeah? It's not, they didn't like move
I
it to
think
Dallas
so.
or anything. But
Yeah, I think
yeah.
so.
Okay. I knew that their media days the other week were in Dallas too.
They probably
but-
should move it to like New Orleans or something, but
Yeah,
And to
a lot-
rotate it would make sense.
Yeah, and then it's a lot of that. It's funny when it comes down to headquarters and such. Matt, I agree with you. I think Texas wins the SEC this year, and for a lot of the reasons you said, but the other one being, I think that Texas has a real advantage here of absolutely torching some teams with Quint Ewers in the SEC that have never played this squad before. And I'll like before last year, I would have sat here and thought Texas and Oklahoma are setting themselves up for the worst time once they get in there. But Sark and those guys last year, Oklahoma definitely is in for
I
a
still
terrible
think that,
time.
yeah.
No, absolutely, they're in for an awful time. But I think Texas is good, and I really think that it comes down to Georgia and Texas in that game, and Texas shocks the world by saying, "Yeah, we run this now," and it would be at least this year. It also easily could go Georgia's direction for every reason Kaysen said. It's just I really think that they have a chip on their shoulder entering this conference and saying we belong here. And I don't know. If Texas isn't back, this might be them actually arriving for the first time in a while.
The only other thing I'll say is I think they played they played Alabama very well. They beat Alabama last year, sort of. I mean, it was kind of before Jalen Milroe was able to play very well. But
what do you mean, sort of? They beat them.
Well, I mean, they beat a really bad offensive Alabama team, but
yeah, but they beat
them. I have a lot of concerns about their defense. I mean, the Big 12 known for not being great on defense. They definitely didn't have a good defense in the semifinal game against Washington. They lost Byron Murphy and Devontae Sweat. So I think that they're Devontae Sweat. So I think they're going to have a lot of figuring out to do and how to make up in the middle on the defensive line.
Sure.
And so I think they're going to get run on pretty hard by a team like Georgia. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, they could be, the teams that are just gonna have to win games 45-42.
And they can.
And then maybe they can. But...
And they can. That's the thing. All right. Who's next, Kaysen? Who's next? I guess the Sun Belt? I'm guessing.
Well, I technically had the remnants of the Pac-12 listed.
Oh, yeah. You said Power 5.
So basically, yeah. Oregon State or Washington State. I picked Washington State. I think Jonathan Smith, who did a great job at Oregon State. He went to Michigan State. They lost a ton of people, and so I think they're going to be kind of in a bit of a turmoil situation. So I think Washington State is going to be the better of the two, anyway.
Yeah, I don't have an opinion. I feel bad for those programs. They're so far out of like my brain. Like, sorry.
Oh, that was good.
I agree that
Oregon
State lost a lot. They lost a lot with Childs going to Michigan State too, and they're Mountain West programs to me now.
Okay, I have my prediction is I think at the end of the season they're going to reach across with the olive branch. They extend the olive branch to each other. And retroactively, maybe not retroactively, retroactively after the game and declare them co-champions because they both deserve to win because they're keeping the spirit of the Pac-12 alive. On a serious note, are they going by surely not? They're not going by the head-to-head matchup. They're going by who has a better record at the end of the year.
I think so.
I
had
Yeah,
no
I would
idea.
imagine.
Like that's how
I would
they could do this
imagine.
in a real legit. Like if it's a conference with us and the other team, I would imagine let's go by who has the best record at the end of the year. You know,
Yeah,
because you're
I would
not holding the
imagine.
championship
Yeah,
game. You know,
yeah,
You don't
yeah.
think?
I mean,
They,
unless
they just play again.
I mean-
yeah, they just play again. I mean, I mean, it's ridiculous, right?
I mean, you could get the gate for it if you're thinking from a athletic director point of view.
I mean, can you?
I
The
mean, I don't
10
know.
people that would
50-50?
go to the game.
Whatever. Anyway, yes, shout out both of those teams. It's sad what's happened to the Pac-12, but I don't think the legacy of that conference is anywhere close to over. I think there's going to be a resurgence in that conference.
I've said it before on this show, and I'll say it again. I think them having like a scheduling deal with the Mountain West is like the first inclination that there's going to be some kind of merger going on.
Yeah,
And
which
so
would be great, right?
which
You
would be
know?
great. I mean that is a fun conference, and so you can do. I think it'll just be the Mountain West as a brand definitely isn't what the Pac-12 brand is. So there'll probably be some kind of Pacific West or
Yeah, they'll merge it into something else.
They'll
Yeah.
merge into something, and then they'll bring back the After Dark stuff. Yeah. So
Football is too good out west for there to not be like a major Western conference.
When like we've talked about on the show before, did the West Coast market just disappear? Like I just can't. I mean,
I think it had a lot to do with the fact that people only watch college football when like the Rams left and the Raiders left before that.
true.
And so I think when the Rams and Chargers came to town, nobody cared about mediocre, awful USC or mediocre, awful UCLA. And
Yeah.
so the appetite for mediocre college football wasn't there when the Rams were winning a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
Like
and it ebbs and flows out there because you got to be good to keep LA's attention, you know,
Yeah.
and on the West Coast in general. So, who's next, Kason?
now we'll be getting into the group of five, which would be the American first.
Cool.
So the American, like I said, SMU, who beat Tulane in the title game last year, is gone. They're in the ACC now, and so kind of a bit of an opening. I mean, I think Tulane was the best team in there for a while. They're falling off, I think, now at this point, and so I have that void being filled by another longtime good program there, Memphis. The Memphis Tigers come back. It's a lot of the last recent champions that have just dominated the conference are gone or kind of falling off a cliff. Like Cincinnati was good for a while there, and they're in the Big 12 now. So, yeah, I mean, I think Memphis is going to be probably one of the better teams from last year that still has the potential to still be very good.
Go for it, Matt.
I also like Memphis for every reason you just said. They're consistently a pretty darn good program, and I haven't really looked at their schedule too much or anything, but I feel confident that that's a pretty decent guess.
Fun fact: I'm pretty sure they play Florida State, so I think that should be a very interesting thing for Norvell. Just for fun.
Oh yeah,
Are you-
he was there before.
I didn't want to interrupt you, Matt. Were you done?
Yeah.
Okay. So after doing a little bit of research like yesterday, I'm going out here on a limb. I think UTSA wins the American this year. And the reason for it is because I was kind of looking here like on McCown, it was like they have a really, really good backfield. And I'm thinking to myself, well, you know, it's a wide open year. I mean, if you're talking about best teams in there, Memphis is solid, UTSA is good, Tulane's never a pushover. But I was like, you know, for the fun of it, I'm gonna pick UTSA to like really have like a burst through year, and the Roadrunners run that conference at least this season. I think that's gonna be a pretty tight race at the top of the American.
I totally forgot they're in the American now. I was
Yeah, well,
I-
what's right?
I
That's
was
why
like-
I kind
I
of
was
had to
like,
have
what?
the conferences up yesterday as I was doing some research because I was like, oh wait, oh yeah, UTSA, they're in the American. So there you go. That's my prediction. Roadrunners.
Yeah, I mean they won 9 games last year in
Absolutely.
in their first season in the American, so they definitely have a lot of potential.
And they have a lot of returners. So look out for the Roadrunners and their incredible uniforms.
I'm still surprised Traylor's still there. I can't believe he didn't go somewhere else.
Well, there you go. So who's next, Kason?
Moving on along with the list, this is now Conference USA. I mean, seen it, last couple years. I don't think it'll be any different. gonna have to go with Liberty. Once again, I know they've had some turnover. I think their quarterback left. That they had last year, I think, but I don't know anybody else who would really be able to be significantly different or significantly better than them this year. So we have to go with Liberty again.
I'm also on Liberty, and isn't their coach Hugh Freeze? No, it's Jamie Chadwell now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was Hugh Freeze, and then the guy from Coastal came over. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I have Liberty too. I don't think this is even really like a contest. Like they're leaps and bounds better than every other member in that conference. So, as much as I'd love to make a debate for another school, I won't. I guess shout out to Kennesaw State. It'll be their first year in FBS, which is just exciting for that school. You know, even if they might be up, they might be setting themselves up for a rough season. But either way, making that jump, it's always super exciting.
I mean, the only other guess I would say is maybe Western Kentucky will be
Western
in that
Kentucky's
game,
probably
but
the second best team
yeah.
in there. Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right. Glad that one was easy. Moving on to a conference that we're all very familiar with.
Oh yeah.
Oh, do that last.
Okay.
We'll do the MAC
come back-
last. Yeah,
we'll
that's
come back
actually
to
bigger
that then.
BG
The Mid-American
discussion.
Good
Conference,
point.
yeah,
Good point.
yeah.
Good point. Okay, so then the Mountain West. The Mountain West. So
Yeah.
we did just talk about the Pac-2 West addendum, but the Mountain West, there's a ton of potential options, maybe depending on who's been good recently. I'm gonna have to go with the Smurf Turf, Boise State.
I also have Boise State. They had a lot of guys that decided to come back to chase this like first group of 5 playoff spot, and they just had a lot of guys come back after finishing really strong last year and winning the Mountain West and whatnot. So I definitely like Boise State.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Boise State as well. I do think that you'll have, I am curious to see how San Diego State looks with Sean Lewis out there now, and Fresno State's never a pushover. Those are two solid like schools that I think in a future Western Conference would be super fun, just because they're constantly very good in not just football but other sports as well. But yeah, for this particular season and what's on the line to potentially make it into that 12 team, I got to go with the Smurf Turf as well with you guys.
Yeah, that's a great point. The Pac-12 After Dark with Sean Lewis's San Diego State team is going to be electric.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's going to be cool.
And then moving on back to this side of the country here, we've got the Sun Belt.
Yeah,
Fun Belt.
The Fun Belt.
So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of potential there. I think it's going to be back to a traditional power there in that conference. After some turnover and stuff, because we saw the coach of James Madison go to Indiana. So I'm going to go Appalachian State is going to return to form and win that conference again.
I also have App State.
I have App State too, and I was just like a little nugget that I found. Joey Aguilar, their quarterback, is he plays 3rd in college football in total yards last season or something like that. And he started like 12 games, set school records and stuff. So I was like, oh, he's back. Well, then yeah, App State.
Good enough for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, Mountaineers. All right.
We've had a lot of consensus here in the show.
We do,
all right.
but like where we've differed like in pretty massive points that are going to shift how these playoff brackets look, man.
Right.
Like exactly. Big
time. All right. Circling back then to, like I was saying, a conference that we're all very familiar with. The Mid-American Conference, home of the Bowling Green State University Falcons, along with some other big time programs. I am gonna have to say, yeah. I'm gonna say, I mean, goes without saying, I would love to see Bowling Green win. I believe that based on what everything has been setting up, that this is going to be a year for the Miami Redhawks.
I think you coward.
Yeah, I know. I think that
who do they beat in Detroit?
Like a legitimate pick, I would say probably Toledo.
Yeah,
I mean, like a
coward.
legitimate pick.
I was gonna say, does he have enough confidence to say, okay, Matt, let's hear it. Why is he a
Prove me
coward?
wrong, Scott. Prove me wrong.
Bowling Green is going to go 9-3. They're going to go to Detroit. They're going to make it 10-3, and then they're going to lose by 1,000 in their bowl game because it's what we do.
What is? Do you have any other thing to say, Matt?
I think that they're going to lose. They're going to go 2-2 in their non-conference games. They're going to lose at Penn State. They're going to lose at Texas A&M. Although I think they might have a shot in one of those games. The way that we are under Loeffler for whatever reason, we'll have a shot in one of those games.
I just wait until the stadium noise kicks in and Mo Bamba starts playing.
Yeah,
I
Obama's
know.
just gonna blast it, and then the meters, we're gonna see the camera shaking, and
I know.
yeah, and the plays are gonna be showing, and they're all gonna be going out of whack.
Yeah, but we do have like the toughest what are they calling them, pod in the MAC this year with
Yes.
having to play Toledo and Northern Illinois, and then we also have Miami on the schedule. So that's not great, but the NIU game and the Miami games are both at home. And the last time we went up to Toledo, we won. So there's reason to be confident. I mean, we brought a lot of guys back. Really, the only like significant loss was Cassius Howell, and who's going to be a stud at Missouri this year, by the way. But anyway, in general, I feel good about the squad. I feel good about the offensive line. We'll see what happens at quarterback, but receivers should be pretty good. We have transfers from Kansas State and from Auburn. Running back is as loaded as it's ever been. On defense, they're good on the defensive line, linebackers, secondary. Like it's everything you'd want if you're looking for Bowling Green to actually do something this year. So I feel good about it. We're gonna do it.
I think this is poised to be probably the best BGSU team since I was an undergraduate there, which predates a little bit you guys. And as we always say, Bowling Green was very good in my in my 5 years there. And as goes the MAC, right? You go ups and flows, coaches come and go. It's just how it goes. And that's what I think makes the MAC really, really fun any given year. I also have Miami winning the championship game realistically, but for the sake of, being an alumnus, I'll say BGSU makes it to the game. I think the combination between, if it does end up Beaslak as the quarterback and what's his name? Is it Harrison June? No, the Fred something, the tight end. Help me out, guys.
Harold Fannin, yeah.
Harold Fannin. Thank you. I was all over the place. I'm like, no, it's not Harrison Jr.
He's like
I think
a
it
90.
is a junior though.
He is a junior.
Yeah, he's like a 90 in college football or something.
Well,
He's
right,
incredible.
and I was told by a friend, that he has like the highest projection in terms of an offensive NFL prospect we've had in like at least Loeffler's time here, in quite a while, and he's going to be.
This is low key like tight end for the mid majors.
It really is. I mean, we've a lot of great tight ends have come through and returned to coaching staffs, and hence why they return to we constantly churn out tight ends. And so, that being said, I think this is I'll go with that. I'll go with the reasons that Matt said. I think there's a few surprises this year that the Falcons are able to go through and then ultimately make it to Detroit. But Miami's really good this year, and barring that we stay the course, BG could be even better next year, right? So we'll see.
Right. I will just point out, because I'm the only one not on the Miami Island. They did lose their top running back and their kicker, who was like what's the award? Best kicker in college football. What's that award?
Yeah,
I can't remember what it is.
Keep talking. I'll look it up.
He won that, and so like they like celebrated that, and they were like, "Oh, those guys are coming back." They like announced they were coming back, and then they both hit the portal and dipped after they said that they were coming back. So like
the kicker hit the portal.
Yeah, he did. He went to Alabama. It's crazy.
What?
Yeah.
The Groza Award.
Groza. Yeah, I was thinking Ray Guy,
right,
but I knew that was punter.
And literally, I typed that in, and Graham Nicholson of Miami just popped right up.
Yeah, he won it last year.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
That's cool.
Also, just for the record, that's exactly why Bama's not going to be good, because you got them cutting checks for kickers now.
Hey man, if it works, it works. Because, and I think that's one of the things about this season is we're gonna see some surprises. I mean, I really think so. That being said, how do you let's take away the playoff discussion, guys, because like I said, I didn't make a 12 team, but you both did. So I want to hear about this and I want to comment on it.
Sure. Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'll do, a couple surprises or disappointments maybe. I think the biggest disappointment to just sort of get out ahead in front of, and for everyone, a certain somebody on the show to be mentally prepared for, is the Deion Sanders Colorado Buffaloes are going to be really bad. They're going to be very bad.
You
Like,
think?
there has been nothing but dysfunction that entire offseason, and as soon as they lose a game, it's going to be awful.
That edit was sweet with the
Yeah.
incompletion to catch. That was
Yeah,
sick.
yeah.
Who's the person you think is going to be mad about that?
Well, I just know, Kellen, you're a Dion guy.
Well, I would say I'm a Dion guy. I was sitting here thinking, what makes you think they're going to be atrociously bad? But the evidence is there for it to go more that direction than positive. This upcoming season.
mean,
So I
yeah, 'cause
actually lean more towards your corner.
There's been story after story coming out about Shiloh and Shadur and even Travis Hunter to an extent having preferential treatment, and they can just do whatever they want. And so as soon as Shadur throws a pick six or something and can go out clubbing the night after, it's gonna be it's gonna go off the rails quick.
So I thought we were getting into the playoff discussion. He just takes a
But
shot at Colorado.
I was just saying disappointments and surprises and
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, okay. If we're
Can we
talking
have
about that.
Can we have a mini Colorado discussion though? Because I just want to ask two questions real fast.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay, so do you think that they'll beat North Dakota State week 1?
No.
See
No.
that right
Absolutely
there.
not.
That when I
Absolutely
found out that they play them in week 1, I was actually like, oh my goodness, that could be actually like the starting gun to a very bad,
Oh, yeah.
very bad season.
My
Um,
other question was, do you think they'll beat Nebraska like week 2 or week 3? It's on the road.
No.
I think they were more likely to win that North Dakota State game than Nebraska game.
I see. This is the thing that plays into my surprise, though. I think Nebraska is going to be good. I think from everything I'm seeing, Dylan Raiola is starting. He could be very good. He's looking the part like Mahomes, so
He
gonna have to
looks
start
like he
playing
could
it.
be really good.
I think Matt Rule has the potential to have them be at least at a significantly higher level than they've been, and they, at least Nebraska for the most part, I think could get out to a good start, and have one of the better seasons they've had in a while.
I have a prediction. No, it's not too much of a surprise, but I think Georgia blows Clemson off the face of the earth week 1. In such a way to where Clemson might never recover. Like the Clemson of Dabo is gone kind of thing.
Dabo is fired a month from now.
I'm saying, like, I think it could be that ugly because I just think that is the difference right now between Clemson and, say, Georgia still. And that's only grown.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
Yeah.
Like, do you disagree with me?
No,
You're totally right.
That's one of the games that's been floating around that I see, like it's funny because when college football came out, like, the stories are in there. And when I found out that Georgia plays Clemson week 1, that's the only thing that's gone through my mind every time I see that game. I'm like, that is going to be like a 45-3 game. It has the potential to be, or maybe it ends up like a 52-20 game. But
so
like Georgia will win by a lot.
Here's the more important thing, though.
Yeah.
It's Georgia. Georgia's going to beat Clemson, but then the bigger thing is a month after that they play Florida State,
Mm-hmm.
and I think if they get killed by Florida State, that is when there's going to be a lot of rumors online about Dino's, or about how Dabo's done nothing since Trevor left. They've been kind of in purgatory since Venables left. Like, that's when you start going to be hearing rumors of like his shtick doesn't work anymore. He can't get the players. He can't get them motivated.
Well, here's another thing. I don't want to make this just ragging on Clemson, but they're going to play Georgia. They're going to lose that game. They open at home against App State. That's not a pushover game. Like, they could lose that game too. And then NC State.
Well, yeah,
and then Stanford, and then, I mean, like, seriously, like I think that they are set up actually for a bad season. But by their new standards, I should say. But I don't know. That's one of those things where I'm like, if there's a program I could see teetering, that's one for multiple reasons.
Very good point. Very good
Yeah,
point.
I made a joke about Dabo not like having his job a month from now, but like actually like the way that they set up their roster, there are 4 teams that took 0 transfers this offseason, right? It's Army, Navy, Air Force, and Clemson.
That is unbelievable.
They
That
do
is
not use the portal. It's
unreal.
crazy.
That
I
is
know.
crazy to me.
I know.
Wow, that's a stat.
Hey,
Stat that.
Hey, Clemson believes in his name, image, and likeness, and they don't believe in the portal. So
I mean, don't get me wrong. If you could still
Mhm.
have a winning season without using it, that's impressive. Don't get me wrong. That's really impressive. I'm sorry. That's not the college football that we have now. That's not the world we live in now.
No.
So anyway, wow. I did not know that, Matt. That's amazing.
that's my point. Is it's just like
Wow.
it is these delusional Clemson fans are going to be like, why aren't we in the playoffs? Like,
Well, to be fair,
Dabo's gotta go.
I don't think true Clemson fans, because I know quite a few now, are delusional about that. I think they see the problems we do.
yeah.
But anyway, that's one of the predictions I had. I don't know if anyone has any more before we dive into the playoff.
The only other thing that I'll point out, I just want to double check this because I heard somebody point this out and I wanted to double check and make sure. Yeah, so Rutgers.
Mhm.
Rutgers does not play Oregon, they don't play Michigan, they don't play Ohio State, they don't play Penn State.
Okay.
They're
They-
going to
they-
Indy, baby.
They've got a little bit of a tough schedule, like a little bit of tough competition with like Washington and USC. But I mean, for them being in the Big Ten and being able to avoid Oregon, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, like they can completely avoid the powerhouses and like skate to like a 9-win season and like a pretty good bowl game.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, they could be in for at least on paper a very good season.
They go to Indianapolis where they get absolutely boat raced by whoever their opponent is. Doesn't matter who it is. Anyway. Playoff time. Talk to me about
Yes.
these brackets, guys. Whoever wants to start.
I'll let you start, Matt.
Okay. I don't want to do anything too crazy here,
you
but
wanna-
I guess I'll just read them. That
Yeah,
might
read
be
'em.
just the easiest thing. So for the first round, which we have as campus home games for the top, for the 5, 6, 7, and 8 seeds, because the first 4 seeds have byes. So
Mhm.
these are campus games. So it would be Boise State at Georgia. I have number 11 Alabama at number 6 Oregon. I have number 10 Notre Dame at number 7 Ole Miss. And I have number 9 Missouri at number 8 Penn State.
Okay. All right. Okay. And read down your 12 to 5. Like go 12 to 5.
What do you mean?
Read number 12, 11, 10.
Just yes.
So
Start
list
at
them
5.
quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
12 Boise State, 11 Alabama, 10 Notre Dame, 9 Missouri, 8 Penn State, 7 Ole Miss, 6 Oregon, 5 Georgia.
Gotcha. I just kind of want to see where that all
Interesting.
lands.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll go and read mine.
Do the same
I've got
thing.
I've
Yep.
got some seeds in the exact same spot, but 12 I've got Boise, and then 11 I have Miami. 10 I have Texas.
Which Miami?
I think you know which one.
Okay. You have to emphasize. You have to emphasize because I've watched a video game put like, the MAC champion at like number 9, and it's
fair-
like that's not
fair
gonna
enough,
happen.
Fair
Yeah.
enough. Yeah, so 10 Texas, 9 Notre Dame, 8 Penn State, 7 Texas A&M, 6 Oregon, and 5 Ole Miss.
I like that you both have Ole Miss really high up there because they're my sleeper in the SEC. I didn't talk about them earlier, but
Yeah.
I think they're poised to have a massive year. The lane train is coming.
Yeah, they really upgraded their roster with the portal and everything this year. Even losing Quinshad Judkins, which was like a lot of their offense last year. I mean, I don't know if we want to have like discussion about playoff teams right now or anything, but like Jackson Dart is another one that it's like he's a pretty good college quarterback, and it helps that he has a cool name.
Yeah, that is a really cool name.
If
But
only Hudson Card was better.
yeah,
Hudson Card was like the perfect name for a Texas quarterback, and he just isn't good.
I'm trying to look up who has the best transfer class technically in the country because Ole Miss. Yeah, that's what I thought. Ole Miss is number one. Yeah, that's what I thought. They
yeah,
consider.
they had a ton of transfers.
Do you guys know who the second best is?
Beats me.
Oregon. I just threw it out there. But anyway,
Oh,
it
yeah,
makes sense.
don't
But but I'm glad I looked that up because Ole Miss. I was gonna make that point. Yeah, they have the number one transfer class. So, so take me. So like, kind of take me through. Why don't take me through why you guys kind of picked what you picked. I mean, you don't have to go team by team, but maybe talk about a few teams that are poised
I'll
to
start,
make it
I
in
guess.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, so I put Miami and Texas in there at 10 and 11 because I have them being, I guess the way I have it technically would be I have Texas as like the fourth best SEC team.
Okay.
Which it because like I don't know, like I said, I mean I think they'll struggle a little bit to compete. I think Texas A&M has the potential to be very good. And I love Mike Elko. I think the thing with Texas A&M is they've had like top 5 recruiting classes for like the last 5 years. It's just Jimbo was not a good coach and was not able to get the best out of them. So it's a loaded roster. And I think Elko could be the difference to get them kind of over the hump of being very good. So I think A&M has potential to be very good. So I have Texas in there sort of. I think basically what it came down to was they play each other, and then I have them losing that game to Texas A&M to kind of sneak in there at the end. But Miami, I think logically I have them then losing to Florida State in that title game.
Yeah, for sure. Which would be a crazy matchup for a couple of rivals. Matt, you want to talk about some of yours?
Did you have Alabama, Kaysen?
I did not.
Okay.
For very
You
good
had them,
reason.
and you had them at 11, Matt.
Yes, I do.
Barely squeaking in there. Yep.
Yeah, I just think that like I think over time they might fall off more, but I still think that this being like the closest year still to Saban, even though they did lose a lot in the portal, I still feel like I mean they're still recruiting really well with Kalen DeBoer. I mean it's not like he's some awful coach that they hired off the street. He was in the national championship game last year. Yeah, exactly. But but yeah, I still believe in Alabama. I think that they'll be able to be at least the 4th best team in the SEC this year, as I have them. But yeah, and I had Notre Dame at 10. I'll just mention, and they have like a terrible schedule, like even by Notre Dame standards. Um, they did just lose their guy who was supposed to be their starting left tackle this year, which isn't ideal. But just against that schedule, and I do believe in Marcus Freeman to be still a pretty good coach. So I think they'll win at least like 11 games this year. And I know that they're not eligible to be a top 4 seed, but I do see them as one of the 8 wild card
I mean,
teams.
in a 12-team playoff, an 11 win Notre Dame team's getting in every single time.
Right.
Like that's just sort of how it goes.
Yeah, I see when you said terrible, Matt. I didn't really know what you meant, but then I looked their schedule up, and it's like the easiest schedule Notre Dame could have. Like that, I'm actually kind of blown away. This is the easiest schedule they've had in years. So
yeah,
go look it up yourself if you see what Matt's talking about there. But one of the things I have written down here, guys, is that with and you both kind of had this peppered in there. There's still going to be a massive SEC bias, even though we now have a 12-team playoff. I mean, every projection I've seen has at least like 5 SEC teams in there and like a couple of Big Ten, a couple of ACC, if that. And then like they throw in like one Sun Belt team. They throw in like the best group of 5 team, basically. And that's one of the things I think we're definitely going to see in this first one and going forward. Just because it just exists in that. There's just continuously been an SEC bias. With the conference realignment, I think the Big Ten is poised best that they have in a long time to finally break in there and have more of their teams in it, even if it's a couple of their newer teams. But I kind of will talk here when I talk about my top 4. But that's the one thing that I saw even in both of your projections there. It's like, yeah, there's still going to be a lot of SEC teams in here.
I think I have 4 SEC teams and 3 Big Ten teams.
I have 5
2
and
ACC
3,
teams.
and I only had 1 ACC team.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about the ACC that I continuously just think is that, like, if it gets to a place where like only one ACC team is getting in and it's the champion, then the alarm bells are really gonna go off a little harder for um, conferences in that situation. I'm not trying to point fingers. I'm just saying it's going to continuously cause your
Oh,
eyebrows to be, you know what I mean?
100%,
So
100%.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's a power four, but it's really like a power two, and then there's like a middle two,
Mm.
and then you get to the group of five, just
that
with
is
the
very much
ACC and
how it
Big 12.
feels. Yeah, there's a middle. Yeah, there is like a middle too.
Yeah.
Feels like it. So that being said, you guys want to talk about top four?
Yeah.
So who you got, guys? Who's got the buys?
I'll start. I'll go. At 4, I have Utah.
Yep.
As the lowest of the champions, and then at 3, I have Florida State. At 2, I have Ohio State, and 1, I have Georgia. And now I only did that for bracket purposes because when I laid out my bracket, I ended up having a situation to where with Ohio State at 1, they would have like played Penn State, and I was like, that's kind of dumb.
Yeah, I do think that they're going to kind of mess up the brackets a little bit to avoid conference
Yeah.
rematches, at least to an extent. I mean, you can't really do anything once you get to like the semifinals or the finals, but yeah, I do think that there might be some rigging there in that direction. I'll say my top four, my buys here real fast. At 4, I have Florida State as the ACC champion. At 3, I have Kansas State as the Big 12 champion. At 2, I have Texas as the SEC champion, and at 1, I do have the Ohio State Buckeyes as the Big 10 champion.
Yeah, this was a little tough to do, but I'm kind of gonna do a point with this. I could easily see something like a number 4 is this is gonna I'm going somewhere with this, okay? I initially wrote this down earlier today as like Florida State at 4, but then I thought, wait a minute, what we could really realistically see is my number 4 here, at least based on our conversation, because I kind of redid it here. At number 4, I have Ohio State. At number 3, I have I have Georgia. Number 2, I have Texas, and number 1, I have Oregon. And my point being that based on what I talked about here is those two champions of those main conferences and their runner ups, right? I don't think that's actually going to happen. And then in this scenario, I'd have Florida State at 5. The reason I wrote that was a little bit for the humor of what happened last year. Like even in a top 4, you still wouldn't make it in this year. But I don't realistically think that's going to happen. But I said it that way because we could realistically see that. I mean, I think the losses in those two big championship games, Big Ten and SEC, that is, are definitely going to cause those teams to drop into like the 5, 6, 7, 8 range. But there's going to be years, and this is potentially one of those years, the first year seeing it, where even though, like, say, Ohio State in my scenario loses to Oregon by a point in the Big Ten championship game. Are we really going to sit here and say, okay, yeah, but that's their one loss in the year, and you don't think they're a top 4 team? It's like, I think they should be a top 4 team. So that is also, we're going to see the divide growing even more
Right.
between the Big Ten and SEC.
Right. The complicated thing is that like the way that the seeding works is that
Right.
they have to like, even if you're like the second best team in the country, if the first best team in in the country is in your conference, you have to be like the 5th seed. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be super weird that way. But I
So
definitely
that
I
that's gonna
agree that
screw
Right.
up a lot of teams
I
for
agree
sure.
that you can be like ranked 5 but be the second best team in the country or the third best team in the country,
Mm-hmm.
and like the final 4 won't be 1, 2, 3, 4 in terms
Well,
of seeding.
we've seen that in college football where like you could be ranked like 12, but like be have a first round bye. Like
Right.
Yeah.
just with because we've seen that a lot when you like just playing through the playoff for the first time.
And you know
But
what's and you know how this is going to work, guys. I mean, at least to my understanding, we're going to have obviously our top 12 reveal like from week 6 on or whatever, whenever it starts, and then you're going to hit. We'll have championship weekend. We'll go through the whole thing, and then we'll have the reveal of the final one. And let's be real, that final one is going to have some changes in there that everyone goes, well, wait a minute, wait. You know what I mean? Like, that's where the controversy is going to interrupt and come in. Again, though, as I've continued to say, it's a lot easier to ignore the complaints from the 13 seed rather than the 5th seed.
Yes.
You know, going forward with this. So
yeah, and then based on my bracket, like the way that I kind of played it out in my head, my Final Four ended up being a matchup between Georgia and Oregon and Ole Miss and Ohio State.
Okay.
And my
So
my final four is number 1 Ohio State against number 5 Georgia, and number 2 Texas against number 6 Oregon.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I see what you did there. Okay.
Yeah, that's how the seeding would have to work out. But I do think that those are the 4 best teams in the country.
Right. Okay. So
Okay.
who so who wins the Natty, guys? I mean,
And then I had Georgia and Ohio State moving on in their matchups and playing, and then I had Ohio State beating Georgia.
I have Ohio State over Texas for the national title.
I guess based on my scenario, I'll go Oregon. I'll go Oregon and Texas with Oregon winning the national title. Yeah, I just think that's because that could happen because the 1 and the 2 would be on the opposite end. So, it's interesting. You got who'd you say, Kaysen? Again, I'm sorry.
Who wins?
Who wins? Yeah,
Ohio State.
you said Ohio. You both pick Ohio State to win the national championship. Of course you do.
It's different.
It's not gonna happen. I'm telling you right now. To all the Buckeye sort of fans and fans that are gonna come across this podcast over the coming weeks / week, Ohio State's not gonna win the national championship this year. They're not. And I'll flat out just say this as well. If they do, I'm not gonna wager myself. If they do, I'll be the first one to come in here and say, hey, I was wrong. They're clearly amazing. They just won like, I don't know, 14, 15, 16 games. Maybe they go 16-0 and win the championship. They go a full NFL, what used to be a full NFL regular season, to win. But no, I don't think that's going to happen.
Kaysen, you got to clip that.
Yeah. I invite him to clip it. Clip that thing I just said. And again, it's for no other reason other than I really feel like on a less like combative note to Ohio State fans and people. I really feel like this playoff, whoever wins this playoff is going to be the last team standing. It's not really going to be like maybe they aren't the best team come week 7 or 8. You know what I mean? Like we're sitting around saying, "Oh, that team's really, really good," and then like an Ole Miss comes out of nowhere and just destroys their way to the championship game. I mean, that's what a playoff is, right? I mean, and this is such a long season that injuries are going to play a factor in the playoff. Like they're still I mean, still college students, you know what I mean? By amateurism, professionalism in sports, they're not professionals. And so the workload management, I mean, this is a long season to put 18 to 22, 23-year-olds through. And I just feel like that's why we could definitely, especially come the playoffs, see some really weird the Final Four is going to be some weird games. That's all I'm saying. Like, I mean, if Ohio State's all I'm saying is any team who's good enough to go through this and win, they deserve it. I don't think there's any kind of like, okay, like no one's going to deny, even if you're not the best team, you're the hottest team. And so I don't know. I just think that that's where the doubters are going to go with their opinions.
I think that's fair. I mean, you think about like March Madness. I mean, you have more games. There's more opportunity to blow it. We don't see Duke win it every year. We see UConn win it every year. But.
No, but UConn's been like undoubtedly the best team in the country the last 2 years, and they absolutely can three-peat this year. So it's like, well, over time, eventually it's just gonna be like, oh, this is what we got to do to win the championship now. Oh, well, let's just I mean, the first real dynasty that emerges in this era is gonna be impressive. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
And I think really impressive. And right now, it's kind of cool to sit here and say, I have no idea who it could be. It's probably going to be one of these 5 to 6 programs that we know, but I have no idea who it could be. Maybe it's the Buckeyes. I don't know. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the playoff. Preseason anyway. We have plenty of time between now and, that period of time to get there. So you guys want to get into Heisman talk?
Sure.
So,
go ahead,
Kaysen, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of options as far as who's going to be on the list. It's probably going to be quarterbacks of whoever has the first round buys. So you're maybe even surprisingly, as much as I would disagree with it entirely, a DJ Uiagalelei. or Carson Beck. And depending on how he is, I mean, he's going to have to be at an elite level that he necessarily hasn't exactly shown at Kansas State. But Will Howard maybe, if Ohio State's number one. Um, Quinn Ewers and Dylan Gabriel, I think, are the two favorites going in. So I'm gonna have to go ahead and pick. They'll probably just give it to Quinn Ewers, just as like a career award.
Can you say Arch Manning? No, I'm just kidding. No, I also have Quinn
next year.
Ewers.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, honestly though, yeah, with everybody leaving and whatnot in college football, it's like going to be the Arch Manning show next year,
I think
but
so
not
too.
this year.
I think so too. I mean, it's funny because this is the first time I would ever say that I did this on like this show or otherwise. You know what I really did to research this? I literally just looked up a betting line. Who has the best odds to win the Heisman next year? Because as I've said to everyone who will listen and on this cast before, this is not at times necessarily maybe technically the best player in college football. It's the player who gets the most media attention. And so I always look at this as which player on this list of in the odds makers here has the chance to generate the most media attention, right? Literally on this list is Dylan Gabriel, Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers, Jackson Dart is fourth on that list, Jalen Milroe, Will Howard, and Nico Imaliva.
Good luck, yeah.
Yeah,
Tennessee, I know what you're talking
Tennessee,
about.
and then Cam Ward and Riley Leonard. There's other ones down there, but like, aren't they all quarterbacks? It's like,
Yeah.
there could be, it's like, okay, so they're all just quarterbacks. Like, I could see a situation where I'm always just rooting for a non-quarterback to win it or something. We get another like Devontae Smith or something like that. But yeah, most likely it's always just whoever is the quarterback on like the top 2 or 3 teams.
I will say though, I think that the 12-team playoff definitely opens the door for more people to win it, because the big thing with the Heisman, at least in the last 4 or 5 years in particular, is that if it's a quarterback or really anybody, the big thing is, well, are they in the playoffs or not? Like, you know what I mean? Like not being in the playoff was such a hindrance to quarterbacks who truly deserved, winning the Heisman, that like maybe their team didn't win 13 games, but they had the most yards, they had the most touchdowns. Like they were offensively I mean, a defensive player's not winning it. So they were offensively like the best player in college football, but their team as a whole wasn't elite enough to be a top 4 team. So
who are you talking about, Kaysen? Does he play in Houston, Texas now?
Say his name. Why don't you just say his name?
His name is CJ Stroud.
There you
or
go.
It's Coleridge Bernard Stroud or something like that. The fourth.
Yeah,
that was fantastic.
I'm just saying.
I'm also one of those players. Go ahead, Kaysen.
Well, I was just saying that, like, for somebody like Quinn Ewers, like I definitely could 1,000% believe Quinn Ewers can go for like 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns or whatever, but then they sneak in as like the 11 seed, but like they still made the playoffs, so like that can't be held against him.
Right, I agree.
You just know what I mean? Like I feel like that opens up the thing to where if you win more than 10 games, your team, like, you definitely have a really good chance of winning the Heisman.
And what you just said is like kind of wild to think about. Like, say a Texas is not as good as we think and loses like 2 or 3 games down the stretch, but then sneaks into the playoff and then just catches fire and makes it in. I mean, that's the thing. That's possible now. And because how often have we seen like situations where you make it in there as a bid and then that like, goes all the way. I'll just use this example. Bowling Green hockey famously didn't win the CCHA, used that as motivation and won the national championship in 1984. That's possible now, So, that being said, I just find that really fun.
I mean, just on the surface, on like exactly the point you were saying, like how many times have we seen a team that, is super hot, but then like has a stumble and like a loss where they're like, okay, now we know that like this was our wake up call. We can fix what needs to be fixed, and then go in and adjust, and then boom, they go and win the title.
Then they're just a buzzsaw because they fixed their
exactly.
problems. Yeah,
exactly. So I am so excited to see how high of a seed we can go. Like there is definitely going to be a 10+ seed in the title game within 3 years. I think. Like
That's
it's there has the potential to be some, you know, fluky stuff that happens, and it's entirely possible.
that right there is another one you should clip, Kason, because it's true. Like it's very very cool.
Maybe at least five. Definitely five, but I
I think
think
you're
it's
gonna
possible
see.
within three.
I think you're gonna see
Mhm.
5 or 6 seeds like all the time because
Yeah.
those
Oh,
are
yeah.
like the second best team in the SEC. Which I mean, Georgia when they won the national title a couple of years ago, they lost to Alabama, but then they came back and they won the national title 3 weeks
Mhm.
later. So yeah,
Yeah, that
that's
who's been
definitely a
called
thing.
that 5 and 6. Yeah, the 5 and 6s are definitely going to be like we're right up there with the 1, 2, 3, and 4. And it's like, oh, now I've got another chance at these guys. Let's go for it.
Mhm.
And man, that's going to be fun. So I guess my right now, I will say I'll end my Heisman conversation little thing by saying in multiple dynasties in college football, Will Howard wins the Heisman. Just throwing it out there. Like he's just got obscene numbers, and it's like, oh, Will Howard, Ohio State. It's like, okay, there you go. So
I
I
wouldn't be
mean,
surprised.
I will just say, I mean, yeah, he'd have to have 4,000 through the air, 1,500 on the ground with his legs. Uh, turns into Lamar Jackson out
I was gonna say, and hey, look,
700
hey,
touchdowns.
I was trying to gas up Ohio State there. Anyway, yeah, that's what we got. Are we done with the college football predictions for now? Any final
there.
thoughts? Because I do have one more thing on the agenda.
I'm all right.
Yeah, I think we can. Yeah, we can
Okay.
move on.
I have one thing I want to talk about, and then I have one more acknowledgement to close it out, just because we were talking in a chat we have about it yesterday. So the Cleveland Browns Stadium, I put that on the agenda just because that's some news. It looks like some building blocks are being put in place for the Browns to potentially move to what looks like an incredible new stadium. Matt's giving a thumbs down. There are 2 Steeler fans here who are Matt and myself. Browns fan, any thoughts? Take it away.
Yeah. Obviously nothing's official until there's shovels in the ground. There was actually just a statement out this morning from some Cuyahoga County officials basically saying please don't leave Cuyahoga County because it'll be terrible for the city of Cleveland. And although Brooke Park might still be in Cuyahoga, either way, there's still a lot of stuff that the government has to negotiate through because it's not going to happen easily for them to move outside of the city. So that being said, though, the renderings that we saw, and there was a great video showing all the different uses of the stadium. I think it's definitely a super exciting potential outcome of this. From everything that they've said and that's being indicated, is that the Haslam family, since they can't leave their legacy on the football field, with wins, they want their legacy to be in brick and mortar and actual like achievements for the area. And so I think that
Good guy, that Jimmy Haslam.
the great guy and completely innocent of all crimes, Jimmy Haslam. He wants his legacy to be bringing a Super Bowl and Final Four to the greater Cleveland area, which I think it would be great for the city region, to be great for the state. I think that the renderings we saw are super cool, and I think it'd be a great place because I love Lucas Oil, I love Ford Field, and I think that particularly in a place like where it is right on the lakefront in Cleveland, it's brutal. I mean, the location is brutal to get to. It's brutal to be in there beyond October.
Yeah.
So that's at least my thoughts. But
I'll actually chime in here to immediately comment. In a very real, I really don't mean this as a knock to the Browns. Historically, Detroit and Minnesota recognized that their lack of success like more people would still go to the games if it was an indoor venue. And I've had Detroit fans straight up tell me that. I mean, the Lions were bad in their whole history. There's a reason why they've always played inside, because at a certain point, you just wouldn't do that. Now, we are entering a situation, though, now where if you can remove your fans from the elements any time of year, hot or cold, go for it, right? and football is just becoming more and more one of those places. Yeah, I mean, I'm over here saying that Buffalo should build a dome. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But they don't want to, because it's like quote unquote an advantage. It's like, okay, well, they've had as much playoff success at times, some years as you. I mean, I know the 4 Super Bowls, whatever, but um, bottom line is, I think that in that sense, like Cleveland is one of those franchises that would greatly benefit from that, especially if you're having a particularly down year. On a side note, though, the state of Ohio badly deserves a venue that's like that. They deserve a Lucas Oil, a Jerry World, a Superdome, a Mercedes Benz, like a form of like a premier massive event place that's indoor where you can have the Final Four, you can have incredible indoor regular concerts, but also uh, host a Super Bowl. Like there's a reason why Chicago's looking at doing the same thing for the Bears' new stadium. Like that region, like Ohio as a state, and just in my opinion, as someone who's not a native Ohioan, really needs that. And the Browns are looking. I mean, say what you will, Kaysen, but the Haslams see that, and they're actually like the group that would do it. Whether you want to build that in Cleveland, just makes sense to do it. I mean,
Mhm.
if Cincinnati was looking to do this, I'd be saying the same thing. Like the state of Ohio really
I
needs like
a 100%. I mean, and
yeah,
there's a ton of other things
a
that go
nice
along
dome
with it.
stadium.
I
Yeah,
mean, I mean, you look not just football, but like you look at things like the record breaking Eras tour, like
yeah,
just huge concerts and stuff to a place in Ohio, in the winter. Like it's just like you can't have concerts in Ohio outside of
right.
April to September. Like it's
Hmm.
like you just can't. And so it definitely is a thing that is a Midwestern issue. I mean, what I'm talking about as well. It's just that's what comes with being from the Midwest.
Yep,
And
Northeast, Midwest. Yeah.
so that's why you rely on your indoor like hockey arenas and stuff that would be the biggest venues you can get. But a place like that, I think in Ohio would be great because you'd be able to host even with this 12-team playoff would be huge. Like, could you imagine Ohio State playing for a national championship in Cleveland?
Oh, yeah,
Like,
that would
like
be
that would be the big like that would be huge.
yeah.
Like Georgia gets to do it in Atlanta.
Hmm.
Like uh,
Yeah, you'd essentially
LSU in New Orleans. Like
you
it's
you would essentially potentially create a can you imagine Michigan Ohio State in there? That and like just the
I
battleground there.
it would eliminate like I'm just saying it would be a great potential site for the Big Ten title game. I don't know if
Yeah.
they'd move it any further east just because like that doesn't make any sense. But
Yeah.
it I'm just saying though, because we were talking about this the other day too, Matt, though, is that it's a bowl game site that there could be a great potential for that, like, the MAC has the Bowling Green's played in Ford Field before. There could be a bowl game there that a Bowling Green could play in as well.
I've always said that if Lombardi had a dome over it, we need something called the Cheese Bowl or
Yeah,
something like the Cheez It
exactly.
Bowl would be up there. But it would have to be indoors in
Yeah.
Green Bay.
So I don't
Uh,
know. I there's still a lot of work and negotiations to be done for this to even happen
I want to hear what Matt
because
has to say about this very badly.
Do you like watching football played in a shopping mall?
Mm.
Uh, Kellen, do you think Pittsburgh would ever build a dome?
Well, see, that's the thing. Do I think Pittsburgh would ever build a dome? If we were ever in a situation where the Steelers were looking to replace the stadium, I'm going to tell you right now, Pittsburgh would be going through the exact same thing that all these other cities are because they'd be wanting to build it north of the city in Cranberry, which is a good 30 minutes north, and everyone in that region would be having this exact same conversation. I have always been on the side of if the economics of sport push the Steelers to eventually do that, I am totally fine with them building a state of the art dome stadium up there. Um, it would be north of the city because that's where all the athletes live, and just there's most land up there, up near Cranberry. Uh, I'm totally fine with it. You build a plaza, you build like hotels, restaurants, you build a whole plaza, a whole Steelers wonderland up there. I am fine with it, but I don't think the Steelers would do it so long as the economics of the NFL don't make sense for them to do it. I mean, they've already shown that they're willing to make any update possible to Acrisure for as long as they can. And quite frankly, the Steelers don't have the same problem. The Steelers usually win most years. They, their worst year is a 500 season. So the Steelers don't need to build a new stadium or change their uniforms or do these gimmicky things to generate interest in the team. They just don't have to.
I will say there's particularly a little bit of a bigger problem for Cleveland than a place like Acrisure has, because you guys at least have the T, and the way that Pittsburgh is set up is a little bit more friendly to that than what Cleveland is. But at least as
Cleveland's
far as,
problem is the whole, you can't go north. It's all lake. That's
Yeah.
like region, like literally, I get that problem. Like Pittsburgh, we can go generally any direction to build a new place. You can't do that in Cleveland. So
yeah, and
Yeah,
so it's
makes sense.
there's nowhere every time I've gone downtown to go there, it has been an absolute nightmare. And so I totally get it. Like it's probably going to be very devastating for downtown Cleveland,
yeah,
but use the land that the stadium's on, build up that lakefront. There's a ton you can do to put a ton of stuff up there.
aren't
But
the Cavs and guards down there too?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
put
so, I mean,
put
Won't move
more
them.
stuff in there for them, and then it's just so logistically impossible to have 70,000 people descend on a downtown and like expect it to function.
And
Like,
Chicago has exact same problem, by the way. Having been there, exact same problem. So, yeah.
Like it takes 2 hours to leave the city anytime you're at a game. Like it's insane.
Yeah. So the one thing I will say, Matt, is that if the Steelers were ever going to actually build this, I really think the Rooneys would look hard, and I mean hard, at trying to find a way to put it down there. Going as far as to potentially, if they could even do this, but buy out Stage AE, bulldoze it, put it right next door to where the old Three Rivers Stadium was, and then rebuild Stage AE right next door the other direction to where Acrisure is now. Like, there's still land right there on that space to build a stadium. Like, I really think they, like, in between PNC Park and Acrisure now, Heinz Field. And that's where Stage AE is. And, so, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I could see it happening for sure.
I mean, the only other note I'll say is this was a conversation I had literally this afternoon, is I was in a conversation with some people about going to the Browns Steelers game.
Mm-hmm.
And the conversation somebody's made the statement, well, like, why would I go when I can watch it on TV?
Mm-hmm.
That's just where we're at with fans now. You have to provide an experience worth leaving their living room, and -5 degrees in the winter is not how you do that.
The game is
getting to a point.
The game itself is not necessarily enough anymore.
Yeah, we're getting to a point where nobody in anywhere beyond Florida or California is going to be able to have an outdoor stadium. Because everybody's going to have an indoor stadium for you to be willing to go there.
Well, even then, like I said earlier, Texas Rangers had to build a new stadium because it's too hot outside.
Exactly.
Like literally, like it's getting dangerous to be outside, like, all the time. So yes. What, Matt? What?
I was just gonna say the Dolphins underwater stadium in 20 years is gonna go crazy.
It's gonna go nuts. That is good. So any further thoughts on that? I mean, personally, from an outside perspective, I kind of hope it happens for the Browns, and the state of Ohio, quite frankly, but I'm not from the state like you guys, so
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say I do as well. Just because, for me, like I can be there in like an hour and 10 minutes.
Right.
So like with easy access off.
And isn't it close to the airport too?
Yeah, it's gonna be right. The site's right by the airport. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and from what this most recent dump of information from the Haslams was I think it was their total investment would have been over $2 billion, between I think $1 billion for the stadium, like $500 million for hotels and shopping and a bunch of other stuff. And so yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But
Last thing I want to point out, shout out just all the Olympic medals and stuff. I think China and the United States are now tied at 40 golds each. And we were talking yesterday, it was such an entertaining game. United States beats France for the men's championship for their 5th straight. The women also won, I believe.
Yes.
Yes, it's just the dominance all the way around, track and field, Ledecky swimming. I mean, I feel it really feels like the era of superstars. This was one of those Olympics where the era of superstars like really showed out, and honestly, it's probably the best showing in an Olympics of any kind for the U.S. in quite a while. Because I was actually talking to a friend about that yesterday. So I was shouting that out. Any thoughts you guys want to throw out there?
Just real fast. So the way that the U.S. men's game ended on Saturday was ridiculous, with Steph Curry just completely going off. And there was like a person on Twitter that posted like the French commentary of the highlights and whatnot.
Mhm.
And at one point, the announcer said, "quote This devil named Curry is hurting us," which I thought was really funny.
How about that stat? Like, it's like the Mandela effect. That's the first time any of us have seen Steph in the Olympics.
It's
'Cause
insane.
And literally, I was talking to my friend yesterday. It was like, yeah, it legitimately is like the Mandela effect. It's like, I swear I saw Curry before in the Summer Olympics. Nope. No, you never have. Because I'm like, one of those years was in the dynasty in like 16. He opted not to go to the Olympics, I believe was the case. And then he opted not to, I think, because of COVID or whatever in 2021. And I was like, wow, so this really is historic, especially if this is the one time we see Steph in the Olympics.
that's crazy that he didn't go in 16 though.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Like,
you would have thought that he would have gone.
I think they were just like fresh off of that humiliating, ridiculous defeat to the greatest basketball team of all time, the
All right.
2016 Cavs.
All right. Yes, the block by
He-
James
he was-
Cavs.
He was busy calling KD to come form a super team.
Crying in
Yes.
the parking lot. Yeah.
Actually, though, yes, in the Durant. But it's funny because like I said to a friend that there's only one team we've seen in our lifetime that I think even comes close to the '92 Dream Team. The Dream Team comparisons are always ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, we're talking about a situation where every single dude on the 1992 roster, except for one, I'm pretty sure, Christian Laettner, is a Hall of Famer. Okay, every single one. They were talking about like 12 dudes, right? The 08 Redeem Team is the only team I think actually potentially could beat them in a 7-game series. Just
You don't
all those
believe in-
guys in their prime. What's up?
You don't believe in Tyrese Halliburton?
No, no, I don't. No, and honestly, there's the one commercial I want to shout out with LeBron that was incredible. I'm about to win my 3rd gold. I'm going for and about to win my 3rd gold medal, but I'm still thinking about my 1st bronze. That was I love that commercial because I'm like, yeah, my goal is to never be that again. At least not while I'm on this roster. So anyway, I also said that I think potentially U.S. could struggle in 4 years, just because if you look in the ebbs and flows, I think 4 years from now is a long time. So to make a prediction I'm not doing that. I'm just saying that we have a lot of old talent leaving. I mean, we saw a lot of guys yesterday for the last time in the Olympics. So going to leave it to the new guys. Just kind of hope that the next generation is good because the world is also very, very good now. So
Just 2 quick shout outs after the Olympics. So Kevin Durant for becoming the all-time, I think, leading scorer in like U.S. men's or women's history for the Olympics.
that's awesome.
And then Diana Taurasi today won her 6th gold medal, which is ridiculous.
That is ridiculous when you consider 6 Olympics. How
She's
long
42
you have to
years
be.
old.
Yeah,
Crazy.
when you consider how long you have to be at the top. Yeah, I mean, insane. So shout out all the Olympians. Another great Olympics is almost in the books. It's been a fun 2 weeks. It always is. So that's the show. Matt, thanks for being here, man. We appreciate you.
Of course, I love coming on here.
Yes, we love having you as well. The one thing I'll say about every one of our guests, but you also, is that I always feel like more enlightened. I feel like I really learned something that I didn't know coming in, and I feel that way with Kaysen a lot of the times on this show. But you really bring that as well to the conversation, so I really appreciate it.
If you need transfer portal stats, I'm your guy.
Absolutely. If you need help with your dynasty too, I'm definitely not your guy right now, but I potentially could be at some point soon. So, yeah. Any final thoughts, guys?
Just looking forward to coming on and talking about the 13-0 Buckeyes when we preview the playoffs in December.
There you go. Yeah, clip that too. You don't have to clip that. He'll just say it again.
Don't worry, I will.
Kaysen, co-host, anything?
No, I mean, I think I've talked plenty today.
Cool, cool. Well, this is Kellen,
This is Kason.
This is Matt.
and we'll see you as always at the next stop.